Okay, we're going to get started. Welcome, everybody. This is a special session that we have organized for the Sustainability Initiative community and in tandem with the Martin J. Trust Center for Entrepreneurship. We have, I think, 25 or so people online. 28, which includes, I know, alumni who are in our alumni renewable energy finance or climate tech finance roundtable. Which is great. This is kind of part of that event series as well. And we're just really excited to highlight Jen Turliuk. She has, since before she was here as a student, I was starting to get emails from Jen about 6 months before she started the Sloan Fellows program, finding ways to contribute, finding ways to engage, hitting the ground, sprinting, not just running, and that has continued to be the case. Taking leadership roles as the TA for the Energy Ventures class, representing MIT in Baku at the COP meetings recently, and then working to develop this body of work around AI for climate. Given that we are all aware of the impacts of AI on climate with the extensive energy use, is there a silver lining? And I think she's someone that I look to for leadership and innovation around that space. So super excited to have Jen here, and welcome.
Thanks so much, Jason. Well, thanks so much, everyone, for coming. I'm really excited to be sharing this with you. I've had the chance to share it in MIT's Climate and Energy Ventures class for a visiting delegation from Tsinghua yesterday, and excited to share it with you folks as well. We're going to be talking about leveraging AI to drive climate solutions and navigating the intersection of technology and sustainability. So first, I want to tell you a bit of background about myself. I'm practice leader of climate and energy AI at the Martin Trust Center for MIT Entrepreneurship, where I develop AI tools for climate innovators. And I'm also in the mid-career Sloan Fellows program and a TA of the Climate and Energy Ventures class, which has had 60 spin-out companies and over $1 billion raised. Before this, I was a climate tech venture investor. I was partner at climate capital Syndicate, which is one of the most active funders of climate tech startups. They have about 350 portfolio companies. And I also led and co-instructed their climate tech angel investing program called Climate Angels. And before that, I was an entrepreneur. I raised venture capital, and the business was acquired before moving into climate tech venture investing, and have also done some writing, speaking, and so forth. Before I get into what I was thinking about covering today, I wanted to ask you folks a couple questions. First, who here is from MIT? Harvard? And who's a current student? Alum? Staff? Cool. Not sure if I missed any categories. A community member? Cool. Well, welcome, everyone. And who here has built at the intersection of AI and climate? Great. And who here is pretty experienced with climate change? And then finally, who here has built with AI? Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for sharing. It's good to get an idea of who's in the room. And hopefully this will be new material for some of you, and hopefully some new material for those who are somewhat experienced in these areas. And also, I'd love to hear from some members of the audience. What are you hoping to get out of today? What do you want to learn about climate and AI, or anything else that I might be able to share with you that you might be interested in? Yes.
I'm just interested in the class and the projects that they did.
Awesome. So in the MIT Climate and Energy Ventures class? Okay, great. Anyone else? Yes?
I saw the title and it looked interesting. So just like be oriented.
Okay, great. And maybe one more?
Trade-offs.
Trade-offs. Trade-offs between AI and its climate impact? Okay, great. Well, thanks so much, everyone. What I'm going to cover today is background and introduction about AI for climate. I'm also going to showcase some of MIT's Climate and Energy Ventures AI tools, as well as AI and machine learning applications for climate change, how to make an AI or machine learning application for climate change. And if we have time, we'll do a hands-on tutorial of making your own AI application for Stack AI, with Stack AI. And if we don't get to that, I can send you a recording of those materials so you can try it at home. I want to tell you a bit about why I got into this work. One summer, I woke up in Toronto, Canada, to this sky. The sky was orange from wildfire smoke, and we weren't allowed to go outside. This was right after COVID, and we hadn't been allowed to go outside for a long time. And suddenly, we weren't allowed to go out in our summer, which most of the rest of the year in Canada is pretty cold. And at the time, I was working in education, and the kids were asking me, why can't we go outside? I didn't really have a good answer for them other than my generation and the generation above me really messed this up for you. Now, I didn't say that to them, of course, but it led to a bit of an internal awakening for me where I realized as much as teaching kids to code is important and cool, if they can't go outside, maybe that doesn't really matter as much. So that's when I decided to pivot my career into climate. Some of you might be familiar with some of what I'm about to share, but I just want to get everyone up to speed and on the same page quickly. Temperatures are rising. Climate change is a huge thing. I was just reflecting yesterday that it's November 22nd or whatever, and I still have not put on a winter jacket. That is very strange. And this is leading to lots of implications like natural disasters, deaths, food shortages, and is projected to get worse. And emissions are the #1 cause of climate change, and we have runaway emissions. When I was at COP29, it was evident to me that some individual countries have done a great job of reducing their emissions, but as a whole, as a globe, we have a hockey stick curve of the worst kind. But we've transitioned before. We've transitioned from different fuel sources to other fuel sources, and I think we can do so again. So how can we leverage AI to reduce climate change? Now, some of you might be immediately thinking, wait a second, doesn't AI use a lot of energy? Why does it make sense to use this for reducing climate change? Well, I'm encouraged by the fact that 20 to 30%, according to different estimates, of AI is running on renewable energy. Of course, we need to increase that further. But what if the benefits we could find from using AI for climate could outweigh the costs of using it and potentially allow us to reduce the emissions associated with AI? Recent advances in AI can help. Advances in neural networks, liquid foundational models, and large language models like OpenAI's ChatGPT. So I want to talk a little bit about MIT's Climate and Energy Ventures tools. We've made these available in the class, and they're also available online for anyone who might like to try them. They're at climateandenergyventures.com, or you can also use this QR code to access them. I mentioned a bit about the class. One other thing I want to highlight is that we're currently in the process of expanding the class to other universities. It's currently being run at a school in Texas, as well as at Tsinghua in China and TUM in Germany. So this is very exciting, and there's more schools that are interested in the class as well. So part of why we're building the AI tools is to help expand the class to other universities in a more streamlined and seamless way. And these tools here, they have a number of different applications and data sources that we're using. So this is kind of a map of how we see the opportunity landscape within climate, where you're looking at factors like supply chain, solution, customer, finance, policy, and planet. And we're bringing in data sources from the policy landscape, financial requirements, market data, techno-economic analysis, supply chain data, and climate data, to help figure out, where in the policy environment is in your favor, what business opportunities are there, who's going to pay for it, and all these considerations that startups that are not operating in climate might not be thinking as much about. Climate and Energy Ventures also has a book coming out in 2025, so stay tuned for that. That'll be alongside great books like Disciplined Entrepreneurship, which is expanded to over 1,000 universities. We're hoping this book can expand to many universities as well. And just to break down the difference between disciplined entrepreneurship and climate and energy ventures, in disciplined entrepreneurship, we're looking at, who's the customer, what product are you offering them, how can you make money? And then within climate and energy ventures, we're looking at not just that, but also what's the policy landscape, what's the techno-economic analysis, and other factors that you might want to consider for a climate business. You might be familiar with some of the tools that have come out through the disciplined entrepreneurship process, including Jetpack, which if you haven't checked it out, I highly recommend. It's on the Orbit website. And there's tools in terms of market segmentation, beachhead market, all the way through to developing your product plan and going through the 24 steps. And what we've created is a number of tools that sit within these 24 steps to consider as a climate startup or someone doing climate innovation. For example, here at number 17, looking at policy amidst looking at your enterprise financials and your business model. And the way we're building these tools is by partnering with existing companies that have excellent data sources or APIs that we're then partnering with to surface the information in an easy-to-use way for the students and other climate innovators that are using it. For example, we've partnered with a policy startup that uses machine learning models to sort through thousands of policy documents and be able to surface what are the most relevant policies for your business. And we've built a tool where students can chat with it and put in their business idea, such as solar cars, and their location, such as Massachusetts, and it shows them the relevant regulations and incentives for the business. And here's a look at some of the tools that are available already. We have tools within energy, beachhead market, a suite of policy tools, supply chain, techno-economic analysis, IP, project finance, and co-funding, and more tools to come. And just as an example of those policy tools, one thing that's been really encouraging is we've spoken to some startups who've used the tools, and one of them said, hey, I just hired a consultant for $10,000 to try and find this information. It took them months to get it to me, and your tool just came to almost the same information within seconds for free. So how can we use AI tools like this to help accelerate the development of climate tech startups? Maybe this will help more climate tech startups find more incentives that are relevant to them quicker so they can access financing more quickly and be able to grow and expand more quickly. And here's just an example of the output. You can see here that it comes up with, information within different regions. This user asked for some information across the US. Different answers are a bit different. So if someone might ask solar cars in Massachusetts, it shows all Massachusetts information. And we built this using the Stack AI tool, which I'm going to talk more about, but briefly is a tool made out of MIT. And it's a drag and drop AI building tool, which is great because you don't have to know how to code. And the other neat thing is you can surface it as either a chat interface, a form, which is what you see here, a website chatbot, WhatsApp, API endpoint, or Slack app. So this is pretty powerful. Another project that we did was around enhancing the selection of climate tech startups with AI. So from my experience working in climate tech venture investing, it was obvious to me that selecting startups was a difficult process. And also, it's been shown that AI, while unfortunately has perpetuated bias in certain areas, within venture capital, data-driven initiatives have been shown to help VC firms reduce gender bias and make better, fairer decisions, which is important because less than 2% of venture capital funding goes to women, for example. And AI has also been shown, and machine learning models have also been shown to outperform human investors in deal screening. So for a climate tech startup competition, we built an AI judge that played a role in each of the different stages of startup selection, from selecting them from their initial application to judging them on stage. Humans played the bulk of the judging in this scenario, but AI played a role as well. And I just want to show you an example of this. So this is the AI judge that we created. Some of you might recognize this as our Todd Hines, professor of MIT Climate and Energy Ventures class. Let's see how it worked.
Yeah, the third question will be coming from the AI.
Given your innovative solvogenesis process in creating virgin-grade plastic from lower-value waste without the green premium, can you elaborate on how MacroCycle ensures the consistent quality and purity of the final product, especially considering the diverse range of plastic waste inputs?
AI Talk, thank you for the question, phenomenal question. So the way that we foresee this is that our technology has the capabilities and technical ability to be able to handle all the different.
So what I like about that, a number of things, but each of the 4 startups that went through this addressed the AI as AI Todd. And this isn't just, a fun gimmick. The startups told us that the AI actually asked them really hard-hitting questions that were areas that they were currently focusing on their business. And we're also creating a paper about this methodology and output. And what we found is that the AI scores were pretty aligned with the human scores. There's room for further alignment, but it brings up the question, who's right, the human or the AI? And perhaps we'll be able to better align those answers going forward. Another project I'm working on right now is chatbots for MIT's climate policy simulator, En-ROADS. I had the chance to demo some of these and pilot some of them with some negotiators at COP29. And it's really interesting to think about, how can we chat with En-ROADS to get better answers or to use it as a guide to help teach further En-ROADS workshops. So these are in beta, but I have the link there if you want to try them out. And here is the QR code for it as well. We have 3 versions. We have the chatbot as a guide that gives answers. We have another one as a coach that asks questions. And then finally, we have one as an explorer that suggests slider actions to take within En-ROADS. And there's lots of other cool climate and AI applications as well. There's some from some great MIT alumni, such as the CEVG emissions reductions calculator. There's also Crane, and there's also GenX, which is created out of MIT as well for grid modeling. Climate Policy Radar is a really interesting climate startup that's operating at the intersection of AI and policy. And are there any others that anyone wants to share? All right, well, let me know if you come up with any or if you see any. I'd love to check them out. Now let's talk about AI and machine learning applications for climate change. So when I was working in climate tech venture investing, I came across a number of solutions at the intersection of climate and AI. The role of AI in climate can be thought of in a number of ways. First of all, gathering, completing, and monitoring complex data sets, strengthening planning and decision-making, optimizing processes, supporting collaborative ecosystems, and it can also be bucketed together in a number of different ways, like these frameworks here. Of course, there's a watch out of AI for climate, which we all need to be mindful of. And then some example solutions of AI solutions for climate include AI-powered satellites, weather forecasting, traffic management, energy efficiency systems, carbon capture, agriculture, and one that I'm really excited about, material science discovery, or for green battery development. You can also use AI to locate ideal locations for things like wind and solar farms. And there's applications in fusion and hydrogen as well. Some example companies include Too Good To Go, which is reducing food waste using AI, Orbital Materials, which is doing materials science discovery with AI, Climate Policy Radar that I mentioned earlier that's using AI for policy. And then there's also companies that you wouldn't necessarily consider as climate companies, like Google's DeepMind, which demonstrated 17% energy savings when they used AI for their HVAC systems in data centers. So large companies are using it within their climate verticals as well. Are there any other roles or examples of climate for AI companies or solutions that you folks have heard of? All right, well, let me know if you hear of any. Love to check it out. Here's an example map from Climactic, which shows a range of different companies operating at the intersection of climate and AI within different verticals like energy, food, and agriculture, and so forth. And they just released this new map this year during New York Climate Week, where you can search by sector, use case, AI technology, and geography to find companies that are operating within those areas. And here's another way of breaking it down from Zange VC. So they have it broken down by different industries as well. So just to provide an example, the area I'm most focused on these days is around energy. And some great work from a researcher from MIT, Priya Danti, has shown that there's a number of ways that AI and machine learning can help with energy systems. One of the ones I'm most excited about is improving energy demand forecasting and being able to match it with better supply to be able to reduce emissions. They have a great paper on this. And AI and machine learning is great for complicated situations. And what could be more complicated than the electrical grid? So there's a range of applications there. They have an amazing paper from Climate Change AI, again, the work of Priya Danti, that you can check out to learn more. And once again, some of the areas I'm most interested in are not just predicting electricity supply and demand, but optimizing energy systems, maximizing renewable power generation, and many more.
I mean, so I'm going to raise a question.
Sure.
A comment about this last one. So the big success case with this approach was Google being able to match supply and demand of renewables.
Mm-hmm.
So in other words, like they can move compute in their data network essentially to where the sun is shining and the wind is blowing, which allowed them to get to a higher percentage of renewable powering of their setup.
Yeah.
Right. So here's a company that's one of the most sophisticated in AI. They're applying it to their systems, and yet what we know is that Google's emissions are going through the roof. Like they've completely reversed all of their sustainability goals because the increased compute from all this AI is overwhelming it. Right. So in a sense, there is a handprint of AI on their optimization on their own systems, but the footprint is still kind of growing too much. So going back to Jen's comment about trade-offs, how do we, is there some way to keep tabs on the footprint? I mean, because I think we want to, I'm encouraging of trying to use these tools in ways that will help us, but we have to be thinking about that sort of handprint to footprint ratio in a way. And I'm wondering how you, as somebody who starts, being very active in using these tools, how do you start to think about that? Some of us are like conscious about our air travel miles. And there's recent kind of analyses that summarizing a single email takes about a bottle of water worth of water to cool the thermal power systems. Are you starting to sort of check yourself or see tools that sort of help people be more moderated in their use of these tools, or notice the footprint while you're watching the handprint?
Great question. It's something that I'm exploring more at the moment. My thesis is on AI applications for energy management for decarbonization. So I'm going to be exploring this a lot more throughout the year. And I have some other materials and talks on this in case you want to learn more about AI for energy. But just briefly, the reason I'm interested in this application and think it has a lot more potential than what's been implemented thus far is because one of the key issues with energy right now is, let's say 10 consumers all come home at 6 p.m. in the same neighborhood, they all plug in their electrical vehicles. This creates what's called a peak load that the physical grid infrastructure may not be able to handle currently. But what if we installed AI at the site, instead of them all being charged at 6 p.m., the AI allows them to intelligently charge throughout the night at different times, so everyone wakes up with their car charged. This is something that in order to implement, we need technological innovation, we need policy innovation, we need finance innovation. But I think that's exciting because the current path we're on, as far as I understand it, to meet the increasing demand for energy and adding renewables is adding billions of dollars of physical grid infrastructure, which is both timely and expensive and won't allow us to meet our climate goals. And this results in many problems, such as the fact that if you want to add a renewable to the grid right now in the US, it takes an average of 2 to 8 years. So many of these projects are trapped. And in this time, they're losing finance, they're losing interest, and they might abandon the projects altogether, resulting in the fact that only 20% of the energy in the US is renewable. We need to solve these issues to grow it further. And hopefully, once we can move more to renewable energy and electric. That'll help us have more AI running on renewables, which will minimize its impact. But yeah, happy to chat more about that offline. And if folks have additional questions during the presentation, feel free to ask. I'll also have a question period at the end. So a bit about the role of AI in climate tech venture investing. I was interested to see when I worked in that field that investors were using it at all stages of investment, from thesis development to sourcing to selection and diligence to memo writing and portfolio support. Just as an example, probably the most extreme example I heard, there was a VC firm where if a startup was interested in pitching them, they would fill out a form, and the VC firm would only review startups that had been bubbled up to the top by their AI off-the-shelf or home-built, scoring system. So some startups didn't even make it to their view. And now there's a watch out with this, of course, that these startups are entering confidential information sometimes into these systems. So it's important for them to think about, what are you feeding into the AI? And I've also made an AI agent that we used in the Climate Angels course. So if any of you want to try it to learn more about climate tech venture investing, I'm happy to share that. Now let's talk about how to make an AI machine learning application for climate change. So there's a couple things to think about. First, what to build. Second, what building platform are you going to use? Third, what data sources will you bring in? Then, what will your application development process be? I'm going to showcase an example, and if we have time, we can try making one. If not, I'll share a video of how. So first, thinking about what to build. Again, research from Climate Change AI breaks down the different areas of climate and potential applications of AI within it. So for example, for electricity systems, for enabling low carbon electricity, there's opportunities within computer vision, interpretable models, and so forth. Then there's other applications within education, finance, and so on. MIT's AI Venture Studio class breaks them down into a really helpful way, in my opinion. Because I often think about, okay, what's the difference? Deep learning, machine learning, AI. So they view deep learning as a subset of machine learning and machine learning as a subset of AI. And then we have statistics and data science kind of overlaid next to it as well. What I want to talk about is moving from creating what I would consider something called ChatGPT wrappers, or something that you could create that provides basically the same output as ChatGPT would, to more so supervised learning, unsupervised learning, reinforcement learning, and also applied AI. So how can we do deep applications within areas like agriculture or health? This is where the opportunity is within a couple of years, according to C10 Labs, a great AI incubator here in Boston. They also advocate for moving away from screen AI, which again would be kind of these easy to build, easy to replicate ChatGPT wrappers, to more so dimensional AI, where you're focused on building a moat with emerging technologies in sectors like agriculture. Another way to look at it is moving from centralized or assistant AI, once again, these ChatGPT wrappers, to more so AI as decentralized or AI as scientists. This could be things like finding a drug cure or finding a cure to climate change. Their formula for AI projects is to capture, analyze, do continuous learning, and then interact and continue this cycle. There's a really great course online if you're interested in learning more about AI called AI for Everyone. This is by Andrew Ng out of Stanford, and he's made these slides available for folks to share. I just wanted to share a couple of key highlights from it with you. In terms of a brainstorming framework, you can think about automating tasks rather than jobs, like call center routing and radiologists. And you can also think about what are the main drivers of business value and the main pain points in your business. For doing due diligence on a project, he recommends thinking about what AI can do, doing technical diligence on that, and then what's valuable for your business, so doing business diligence on that. And I would add, of course, what's the climate impact? So looking at the intersection of those three things. For doing diligence on this, you can look from a technical standpoint, can AI meet the desired system performance? How much data is needed? Then from a business standpoint, does it lower costs? Does it increase revenue? Does it help you launch a new business or product? And then from a climate impact standpoint, I find it really helpful to review things like Project Drawdown's table of solutions, which ranks all the different climate solutions based on their emission reduction potential. Where you can see in their scenario 2 here, some of the ones they've highlighted are onshore wind turbines, utility scale solar voltaics, plant-rich diets, reduced food waste. So how can we leverage AI to help with some of those things, or family planning and education as well? Another thing to think about is build versus buy. There was a time when I was working in climate tech venture investing where every startup that pitched me told me that they were an AI startup. So I had some questions for them. Does this mean you're using ChatGPT, or have you built your own AI system? If you built your own AI system, did you need to do that? Or have you just replicated something that already exists? If you did build your own system, is it proprietary in some way? Does it really match back to your business value? So it's interesting to think about whether you in-house something or outsource it. And the guidance is data science projects are more commonly in-house, but some things are industry standard. So the recommendation is to avoid rebuilding those. For example, rebuilding something like Slack may not be the best use of your time, but building something proprietary might be. There's a number of great platforms you can use to build solutions for climate and AI, such as Marbleism, which allows you to build a whole front-end website and back-end application within seconds after just providing a couple sentences. That is one of the most impressive things I've seen so far. If you try it and you run into errors, you can just copy the error messages into their integrated chatbot, and it will fix itself. It's very impressive. Stack AI, I mentioned before. There's others like Streamlit, Claude, Wand.ai, Replit Agent, and v0.dev. And then no coding is required for any of these tools. But if you want to do coding, tools like Next.js and Python are good language options. And of course, these days, most developers are using AI to actually help them code. So you can use tools like Claude, ChatGPT, or GitHub Copilot to do so. And tools like Stack AI also allow you to integrate with other APIs. So you can go beyond building a ChatGPT type wrapper and integrate some proprietary data sources. Are there other platforms you folks have heard about that you like and recommend? All right, let me know if you hear of any. They're constantly evolving. Here's an example from Marbleism. So I put in that I wanted to build an energy efficiency system. This is the back end that it made with different pages within the back end, and it also created an amazing marketing website as well. And if you want to go with open source frameworks, those can be really great as well. Some machine learning frameworks include PyTorch, TensorFlow, Hugging Face, my favorite name, Paddle, Scikit-learn or R, and also look at research publications like Archive or GitHub. And then thinking about data sources, there's a number of great ones. And again, Climate Change AI has great resources on this. They have a wiki where you can look into, for example, the industry of interest like energy, and it shows you here's some great data sources for it. They also have tutorials and instructional videos. So if you're interested in an area like AI for food, you can find a video about that from their summer school. And NOAA has some great data sets within their Climate at a Glance page, and NCAR has a great climate data guide as well. In terms of how to select a data source, there's a number of considerations, but here are a couple of mine. First, what's the quality of information? Sources like IPCC are really credible sources of information. Second, what's the cost? A lot of it's free, but some of it is paid. And then finally, what's the ease of integration? Is it as simple as integrating with their AI or their API or downloading a spreadsheet for your use? Or do you have to do a lot of complicated coding in order to integrate with their data? Here's an example application development process. I feel like those words start to like maybe get people nervous, like, oh no, this seems difficult. But trust me, it's not. I'm going to outline a simple way to go about it. So first, you can define your product requirements document for what you want to build. I'm going to show an example. Second, find an external model or resource or multiple. Then develop a methodology to interact with it. Then you can develop what's called a minimum viable product through a software like Stack AI, and then test and refine it. Here's an example product requirements document that we used for building one of the tools for the class. So you can see here it's broken down into P0, P1, and P2. And we have all the different features that we want to use. And then we've broken it down into what's required for the MVP, which is P0, what's nice to have, and what's out of scope. And it's really helpful to align on these things before you start coding or start doing no-coding tools like drag and drop AI builders, so that you're not suddenly into this huge project that doing requirements that you don't even need. And you can always build on your minimum viable product after that. Here's an example project I built as part of a hackathon. So the challenge was around energy. Homeowners want to upgrade their homes to reduce their costs and their environmental footprint, but they often don't know how. I integrated with the policy API that I talked about, which is called Artifacts AI API, so that users were able to enter questions like, what city do you live in? Do you rent or own? What's your budget for upgrades? And what are the utility costs? And then it recommends sample energy efficiency upgrades. And it links out to them as well. The results of this are homeowners are using it to decarbonize their homes, reduce the emissions associated with their homes. And it was also a challenge category winner in that hackathon, which was pretty cool because I didn't need to write any code for it. So it's interesting how hackathons are evolving these days. Now I'm going to do a brief tutorial on how to make your own AI application using Stack AI. So if you're interested in following along, please feel free to make a Stack AI account if you haven't already done so. I'm just going to write the link down here. You can Google it or go to stack-ai.com. I've also included my website of projects in case you're interested in checking out some other projects as well that I've made. And this is a look at how I usually get started with building a project. You can start to think about now any ideas for projects that you want to build, because I'm going to ask if any of you have some in a moment. But first, I like to look at what the inputs are. In the example of the energy efficiency upgrade tool that I just showed you, those inputs would be, do they rent or own? Where are they located? What's their budget? And then I integrate that or connect it with an LLM, a large language model, such as OpenAI or Claude or Perplexity or others. And then I also include a prompt in there. So instructions, like based on the user's input, provide this output. Which brings me to the next part, which is the output. What do you want the user to see? In the example of the energy efficiency tool, I wanted them to see, here's a link of all the different here's links of all the different incentives you could leverage. Now, those three things, input, LLM, and output, would be what I would consider a ChatGPT wrapper. You could usually come to the same information in ChatGPT by asking it a question. But if you want to spice things up, make it a bit more proprietary and interesting, you can add a data source. This data source could be an API, it could be a spreadsheet, it could be a PDF that you upload, it could be a PDF that the user uploads, or any other form of data. This makes the tool a bit more proprietary and less of a ChatGPT wrapper. In fact, no longer a ChatGPT wrapper because you have specialized information coming in that ChatGPT may not have access to. And now here's an example of what that looks like within Stack AI. So you can see over here, these are the inputs right here, this section here. Here is the large language model. And here is the output. And then if you want to add some data, I have files coming in here. So hopefully this doesn't look too complicated. It's really not. I'm going to show you how to do it in a second. Here's a more complicated one. This is integrating with an API. I have the inputs here. I have the LLM here. I have the output over here. And all of this stuff is related to the API and also some Airtable spreadsheets that I have going as well. So to think about the steps, I'm going to give an example of a vacation itinerary generator. So we have some vacation time coming up. Where do you want to go? What do you want to do? So the goal or objective here would be make a vacation itinerary generator. First, you want to decide on your inputs. For example, the vacation location, number of days, budget, and then what's your output? Maybe an itinerary in a table format. Then you would decide on what's the large language model or AI that you want to use. I like to use OpenAI or Claude, or you can plan to test or use several. And then you would write your prompt. For example, using inputs, make a vacation itinerary. And you can often write this using AI. I usually write it first by hand, human style, old school, you know. And then I copy it into AI and ask them to elaborate on the prompt. And then that's usually what I end up using. And then you can wire it all up with connectors between the different modules that I showed, and then decide on your desired publishing format, like a form, and then publish it. And you can also try at home making something with Marbleism. But for now, we're going to try making something with Stack AI. So does anyone have something that they are keen to build? For example, in the Climate and Energy Ventures class, we built a grant finder. So you could enter in your startup idea, your location, how much money you're looking for, and the timeline. And it would review websites, including grants.gov, and then surface, here's the relevant grants for you that you can apply. Does anyone have a application that they'd love to see that we could, that's sort of in the scope of the couple applications that I've mentioned so far, which would be the energy efficiency tool, the vacation itinerary generator, grant finder, anything else? Anyone have a tool they want to build?
Does your vacation itinerary calculate the carbon footprint of the vacation?
Yes, we can build one of those. That's a great idea. We built that yesterday with Tsinghua, and they seem to love that. So let's do that. Let's do that, because I think that one makes sense. Can you folks see this okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And feel free to follow along on your computer if you want. By the way, Stack AI lets you make 2 free projects. And Sloan students, and I believe some other students at MIT, have free access to Stack AI as well. So first, what you're going to do is go to New Project. And then you can click on the blank New Project here and use Template. And now you can see we have the input, we have the LLM, and we have the output. So let's think about this emissions calculator vacation itinerary generator. We're going to have some inputs. Then we're going to have the LLM. And then we're going to have the outputs. And we might add some data. What are some inputs that we would like the user to give?
Dates.
Dates, exactly.
Budget.
Dates, budget. What else? Yes?
Your location. You want
Location, sounds good. Any other inputs?
Transport.
Mode of transport, excellent.
Number of people.
Okay, great. What outputs do we want it to have? So what do we want the user to see at the end?
Options. Higher.
Yes? Sorry, we had a hand here?
How much it costs?
How much it costs? Okay, great. And what was the other?
Higher and lower carbon options.
Yeah. Anything else? Okay. So now we're going to select an LLM. Let's go with OpenAI for the sake of ease, because we already have it up here. And we're going to give it a prompt. Now, for the sake of demonstration, I'm just going to pick a couple of these inputs. So why don't we go with budget, mode of transport. Or actually, we'll just use all of them. OK, I'll just do it quick. So basically, what we'll start off, we have one input here already, which is going to be dates. So we're going to say 10 days. And then we can pull in another input. And we're going to put in a sample one, which is budget. Let's say we have $5,000 for the budget. Then we can pull in another one, which is location. Let's say we want to go to Hawaii. That sounds fun. And then we're going to pull in another one, which is the mode of transport. I'm in the US, so I'm going to have to fly. And then once I'm there, I'm going to have to drive. And then finally, number of people. So let's say it's a family of 4. Now we're going to connect each of these to the LLM. You can see I'm literally drawing wires here from section to section. And then it's already connected to the output. So the last thing I need to do is give it a prompt and bring in the inputs. Now you can see here, the inputs have this little square on them where it says in 0, in 1, in 2, in 3, and in 4, and that's how I'm going to talk to it. So I'm going to say, given the user input, and this is just an example one, we're going to see how it works. Given the user input, generate a vacation itinerary for a input 0, length vacation, with a budget of in 1, in 2, which is the location, using methods of transportation, including in 3, for a group of in 4. Now, the outputs we also wanted to have is please specify the costs and provide high and low carbon options for this vacation. So what I like to do usually is once I've written it human style, I just run it to see what it comes up with. And then from there, I decide whether or not I'm going to modify the prompt further within AI. So for example, oh, I see. It hasn't picked up our data. I think I might have put the wrong notation in here.
It got the link, but it didn't get Hawaii.
Didn't get Hawaii. Okay, so then I'm going to, in the location of, okay, so let's try that again. So this is what we call prompt engineering. Remember a couple years ago, and it was like, there's all these prompt engineering roles for like $300,000. All right. Well, sometimes also the software has some errors, so I'm not quite sure why it's not picking up our location here. Usually what I would do from here is bring this into Claude and improve the prompt. So let's do that. Improve prompt. Oops. Copy it in. Improve this prompt for Stack AI. So now it's generating a much more specific prompt and the specific output, and it's providing a lot of steps. We probably don't need to include the error handling part, but let's include the rest. And then after this, we're going to move into any questions. So now I'm going to copy it in. Used more than once, so you can't use an input more than once. So instead, I'm going to cut it off where it starts to reference it twice. Oh yeah, output format. So we probably don't need to include that. There we go. Used but not connected. Oh, okay. These were somehow not connected, even though I connected them earlier. But anyway, live demo, folks. All right. All right, so now it's provided us a trip under budget. It knows the number of people, and it's given us the carbon footprint comparison. It's also given us a daily budget, transportation, logistics, and a daily schedule. Now, what we've created here would be probably considered a ChatGPT wrapper. So if we wanted to add in some more information, we could perhaps give it a file, for example, that has carbon output of different things. We could integrate an API that has that information. We could maybe have a travel deals website, pipe in some information, or something like that, which we would just do by dragging one of these data sources in and connecting it up with the output or with the LLM, and then having it talk to that just like it did any other input. So we would just name it like that. And now let's say we want to publish it. We want to send it to our friends. So we would save it, and then we would go to export, and then the name, carbon friendly vacation generator. Handily, I already have it there. And we're going to put in the names of the different inputs. So going from the first one, just remembering that was in 0, the dates, budget, location, mode of transport, and number of people, and then the output is itinerary. So then you can save that interface. And then we should be able to now copy it into a new tab and give it a shot. Number of people, 4, 5 days, budget, $1,000, location, Italy. Rowboat. Okay, so we have an error here. It seems like your message is incomplete or unclear. So what I'm going to do is I'll go back. And sometimes what it likes you to do is press, for some reason, press save a number of times. And then press publish. And maybe I'll press it again for good measure. Then go to export. And let's try it again now. Might need to refresh it. Oh, here we go. Boom. Trip overview. So now I have a vacation generator, which I can send to my friends. I can use, obviously, as mentioned here, rowboat transportation is low carbon, but impractical for long distances. AI does seem to have a bit of a sense of humor. So yes, there we are. So now we can go to, if anyone has any questions, and actually before we do that, I just want to highlight, I'm gathering interest for running a course during IAP on AI for energy solutions, where we'd be diving more deeply into topics of artificial intelligence and machine learning, and also energy systems, and then applications for that AI on energy systems for reducing emissions. So if you folks are interested, this is the application link. You're the first to hear about it, but feel free to tell your friends about it. And then it would involve hands-on building as well and a project at the end. No prerequisites, no coding knowledge needed. We'd be diving more deeply into some of the things you heard about here. But yeah, with that, any questions folks might have? How much time do we have left, Jen? Is it till 1?
We have the room till 1, so we can spill over until then.
Sounds good. So any questions folks might have? And if you need to get going at any point, just feel free. No worries. Yes.
Yeah, we have a question online. David asked,
Climate change. And I do think that is a major priority, probably the biggest priority. And it's an area I'm trying to do more in. But at the moment, I try and do that through writing, through speaking, through building of these tools and involvement in the classes that I've been involved in running, but always looking to do more. So if you have ideas, happy to chat more after. Yes?
So
full disclosure, I am deeply skeptical about using AI to solve
All right.
crisis. But primarily from this perspective of like every time we've developed a new cool tool as like a society that is more energy efficient or something like that, we increase the usage of that like exponential folds.
Mm-hmm.
And so how are you thinking about that particular like human problem in the midst of this technical problem?
Yeah, it's a great point. I was watching a talk the other day which was highlighting that a recent innovation was a drone that perfectly balances an umbrella. Why are we building things like that? And I do think that most of the AI uses these days are not necessarily productive, like generating, I don't know, random cat images. I mean, okay, those probably help with mental health to an extent, but I think putting more AI onto renewables will be really important, but projections have shown that, yeah, as we improve efficiency and put more onto renewables, there will be more AI usage that we then need to add more renewables for. It's one of the areas I'm exploring further within my thesis, but I do have still some hope for society that we can think about more. Like I've heard it said, whenever you post something on LinkedIn, it's like turning on a light bulb forever. Are we aware of that? I sure wasn't. There's nothing that says anything about that on LinkedIn. Am I not posting on LinkedIn because of that currently? No, I'm trying to make sure, but I am trying to make sure that what I do post on LinkedIn is messages that are helpful for the climate and can hopefully get people to take action in a way that outweighs the costs of turning on that light bulb, if that makes sense. But that's just my approach, and I'm not saying others should do that, and my approach is evolving, but yeah, I'd be curious to chat more about that or hear your thoughts on it too. Other questions? Yes?
Have you seen use cases with regards to remote sensing and AI specifically for deployment around climate?
Yeah, I've seen some great remote sensing applications. For example, there's some startups working in oceans that have these autonomous rovers that use AI and sensors to sense information about the water, whether it's water quality, water levels, and all of that helps populate a network which helps decision makers to better understand what's happening and what to do.
Got it. And maybe just to follow up on that, just with regards to AI application for video generation, I mean, I'm just trying to think of a couple of applications with regards to climate, but I think what I'm trying to get is, I'm super curious to understand if you've seen that technology evolving with regards to AI text to video.
Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
AI text to video just with regards to...
Have I seen that evolving?
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's evolving, but just with regards to the cost coming down and the energy that it takes to produce that, have you seen that coming down significantly?
I've seen text-to-video capabilities getting better, but I'm not familiar with whether they've been able to reduce the emissions associated with them. I know there's a number of companies that are currently working really hard at how do they reduce emissions associated with their AI, because electricity is one of their #1 costs associated with it right now.
Which are these companies?
Like Google, Microsoft, some of the bigger companies that have pretty active projects in this area. One that I really like, that's not directly related, but is similar, is Google X's Tapestry project, where they're building a Google Maps for the grid. That might sound unrelated, but I find it quite related because one of the big issues right now in the grid is grid operators, utility companies don't actually know what equipment they have, which sounds pretty crazy, but when they're thinking about adding a renewable or something, they actually have people driving out often to these sites to look around with their human eyes and say, do we have a transmission line here? What do we have here? So it's kind of hard to optimize a system if you don't know what the system is that you have. So that's one of the reasons I'm excited about that project, which should create a Google Maps for the grid, which would be able to help better optimize the system.
Thank you.
Yes?
Yes, I wonder if you compare with different tours you just introduced, and do they have some underlying bias? Like, for example, they have a particular user, maybe their answer will have some underlying preference on a specific group. How do you feel there is some bias in this kind of AI tours?
Yeah, I've tested a number of different tools. My favorite one is Claude right now for a number of different reasons. It's really great at code generation, for example. It's much better than ChatGPT. In terms of which systems are better or worse at bias, I unfortunately don't know the exact nuances of that. Although if anyone does, feel free to jump in, or would be happy to learn more about it. Yeah. Maybe one or two more questions? Yes.
Yes. Thanks so much for this. Just could you comment on how rich the data is when you talk globally, so outside of the U.S.? Is that improving over time? Do we see development?
Which type of data?
When you talk about like energy efficiencies, company-specific data globally, national kind of consumptions, etc.
Mm-hmm.
We obviously have great infrastructure in the U.S., but is that, consistent across the world if you're talking about global solutions?
Yeah. So the quality of data varies widely. So let's say within energy, for example, there's tons of data that is private, including in the US, that creates a huge issue because then opportunities for collaboration are diminished. Whereas in a country like Chile, they have all that information public. And that's why Google is working with the government of Chile in optimizing their energy systems, because they have that information in public. I was talking to a couple folks when I was in COP and was just like fascinated by the conversations. There was a fellow who works for the government in Cuba who was saying, I'm really interested in AI, but I don't know what to do with it. What should I do? Like, I've heard it's good for, sea level rise. Should I do that? And I was kind of asking him, like, what are some of the key priorities? And he was saying that disaster prediction is one of the biggest issues that they're facing. So we're talking about opportunities to leverage AI for that and potentially partner with a university in Canada, since I think there's some rules about partnering with universities in the US, with Cuba. And another country, a fellow who is the chief negotiator for Africa, who works and lives in Zambia, was telling me that the country is mainly powered by hydro. So when they have drought, they have to turn off power in huge sections of the country. Like, they literally turn off this part of the country, then this part of the country, then this part of the country. And on average, people during that time, which can stretch for months, have power for only 3 hours of the day. And I don't think they have, I'm not sure on the quality of their data, but I'm guessing it's not necessarily available publicly on the internet. So I was initially skeptical that AI could potentially be used for peak shaving or load shifting to help with an issue like that. But through talking about it, it seemed like there might be some possibilities there. So that was exciting. Yes, last question.
We have one more online. Amber asked, is there a central location where these free tools are posted?
I'm not aware of a central location online, but happy to share the slides, and also the video will be posted online, I believe, right? Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much all for coming. Really appreciate it. And if you have any other questions, let me know.